6. Abstract theology. For fallen man, it is this world which is the real world. Anything beyond the world of time and space is, for him, simply an idea or an abstraction. Because fallen man regards the physical universe as the real world, and usually the only world, anything which may be necessary to posit as existing beyond this world is, by comparison, limited, ghostly, or unreal. It becomes a limiting concept, a myth, a rational abstraction, or something similar. At the same time, the, quote, reality, end quotes, of the physical universe is enhanced or increased by absorbing into it whatever is necessary to make of the cosmos a self-sustaining unity. The idea of nature is the great example of this fact. Nature is seen as a complexus which is a self-sustaining objective order with its own inherent power and workings. The worldview of the deists, despite many alterations of the framework, is the basic view of nature in ancient and modern thought. Nature is the sum total of all reality, and yet somehow not only a unity, but a corporate thing, possessing its own inherent or native law, development or structure. But this nature, so commonly invoked, is merely an immanentist substitute for the idea of God. Nature is a collective noun used to sum up all physical reality. To ascribe any law, structure, development, or power to that collective noun is to indulge in myth-making. There is, however, an urgent necessity for such myth-making in anti-biblical thought. To accept nature as merely a collective noun means that law, structure, development, and power can then be understood only by reference to another world. The God idea then becomes more than a limiting concept and an abstraction and becomes a necessity. If, however, we retain this anti-theistic point of view to any degree, to that degree our theology becomes abstract theology, because our essential or primary reality is not God, but nature. We may even believe that God is not dead, but, quote, real, end quote. But he will only be real enough to snatch us out of this world, not to govern and predestine both us and the world. We also have many who will affirm predestination and the sovereignty of God formally, but abstractly, because, in practice, their theology remains abstract. To be specific, how can anyone affirm the sovereignty of God concretely and realistically without opposing and denying the sovereignty of man and the state? If we affirm God's sovereignty but do not challenge humanistic doctrines of sovereignty from the pulpit and pew, in the home, the Christian school, the voting booth, and the halls of Congress and elsewhere, we are either denying our profession of faith or affirming a two worlds theory, that is, that God is sovereign in this supernatural realm, but Satan governs and triumphs in space and time. We are then not Christians, but Manichaeans. Similarly, to affirm predestination by God and to assent to socialism in any form is to say that there are two realms of predestination. God predestines the soul, and the state predestines the physical and natural life of man by its planning and control. Again, if we hold to an abstract form of systematics, we will not talk about atonement without seeing that, apart from Christ's atonement, man will seek atonement by sadomasochistic activities. As a sadist, he will attempt to lay his sins upon other people, and as a masochist, he will attempt, through self-punishment, to make self-atonements. Politics, religion, marriage, and all human relationships will manifest sadistic or masochistic activities wherever men are without Christ. For the pulpit to preach Christ's atonement without seeing its very practical consequences of deliverance from sadomasochism and the results of a society which is dedicated to sadomasochistic works of atonement is to hold to a Manichaean or an abstract theology. The result of such an abstract systematics is the radical irrelevance of the churches which profess it. The fact that, in the United States of the 1970s, well over 50 million adults profess to believe in Jesus Christ as born-again believers, and yet the nation drifts more strongly into the ways of humanism, is indicative of the extent to which theology has become abstract. An abstract theology is only formally or technically systematic. Systematic theology must of necessity deny, because God is sovereign, that there are any neutral facts or any areas of neutrality. All factuality is God created and God governed and interpreted. All facts are therefore theological facts, and every area of life, thought, study, and action is a theological concern. Education, politics, science, the arts, the vocations, the family, and all things else are theological concerns. A theology which does not involve itself in every area, in terms of the sovereign God and his infallible law word, cannot be systematic. It is merely abstract. Thus, it is not enough for theology to say that the whole world was ordained and created by God, but also the whole of history and all things therein. None of it is ordained or predestined to manifest the viability of autonomy for the world, for man, or for Satan. There is no independently functioning person, thing, or realm. Thus, we must avoid the error of abstraction. It is the mark of little or no faith. God is not real for those who preach an abstract theology, or, if real, he is remote and pale in their thought. Similarly, those who immerse their theology into history have no transcendental and sovereign God. Thus, the modernists see only the world of nature as the real world. Hence, for them, the only real God is a God who is totally immanent, fully a part of the cosmos. The result is the death of theology and a turning to sociology. Both the immanentists and the abstractionists deny, to all practical intent, the living God. Both stress heavily the poetic and metaphoric nature of Scripture and its language, because talk of a jealous God makes God all too real and vivid. We are therefore always cautioned by such men that, when God declares, "Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them," images, "For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments." Exodus chapter 20, verses 5 and 6. We must understand that the language is anthropomorphic and to be seen as figurative, designed to teach. Is this so? Exodus chapter 34, verse 14 is more emphatic. "For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God." Paul speaks of idolatry in any degree as something which provokes God to jealousy. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 22. By abstracting jealousy from God, we also abstract every other aspect which indicates personal response, so that love and hate in God are replaced by formal and technical responses. God fades steadily into an abstraction. We can no more comprehend the jealousy of God than we can his predestinating counsel and decree. But we must accept God as he is in his revelation in Scripture, not as he is smoothed out and reinterpreted by philosophers and theologians. If we allow their ideas about the sovereign and jealous God to govern us, we have an abstract God, and an abstract God is no God at all. Again, a God we can comprehend is no God at all. He is no bigger, if is big, than we are. The God of Scripture we cannot comprehend, for he declares, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 and 9. We can know him truly in his revelation, and every, quote, fact, end quote, about God is totally consistent with every other. But we cannot comprehend or know him exhaustively. Abstract theology seeks to reduce God to the dimensions of man's mind. Lapsarianism seeks to penetrate the mind of God and to chart its workings. It ends up with a minimal God who is reduced to the level of man's logic and to the temporal nature of man's thought. The roots of abstract theology are in Greek philosophy, with its belief in the ultimacy of ideas. Abstract theology makes God over into the great idea, in whom all ideas reside in one coherent and intellectual whole. Thus, the God of the theologically minded intellectuals is not the living God of Scripture, but an abstraction. If we bow down before an abstraction, we bow down before an image created by the mind of man, and we are idolaters.